only thing we have to fear is
in war.
fear itself.
There is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Don't worry, folks. You're still listening to WallBuilders Live, but it sure feels like you're in the Twilight Zone whenever we have states that are passing legislation that says, you might be a guy, but if you feel like a girl today, or you just claim to feel like a girl today, you can go ahead and use that girl's bathroom. They don't mind if you show up in there where they're, changing in the locker room or whatever else might be happening. David, beam me up, man. This has got to be the Twilight Zone if those kinds of things are happening.
I think that a lot of people will understand that music that was just played. Could be some younger ones don't quite get that, but that was an old black and white TV show, and that black and white TV show back in the 60s and thereabouts, it was a really scary program. I mean, it was kind of like horror without the blood and guts, but there was always something out of science fiction that came into real life that just scared the dickens out of you. And so I remember parents that would not let their kids watch that program because they would have nightmares after they did. And so it was kind of a reality-based science fiction, scare the daylights out of you. And
I just want to go on the record saying that I never stayed up and snuck into the living room to watch the Twilight Zone. It never happened that I was caught.
Well, that you're called. Yeah, I like it. I will go further than that and say I never got to see it because it was one of those things that my folks were scared to death of all the, it's like, we don't want you having nightmares. And so I've seen clips in adulthood since then, and they were right, man. That's some pretty weird stuff for a kid to have to watch. And so it's that Twilight Zone kind of mantra that came out in the 60s. That is now reality today. You don't have to enter into a far land, distant far away in your imagination. All you have to do is walk into Maryland or walk into California or walk into some of these things, and you would say you were in the Twilight Zone because reason and logic and time and reality have no place there and nothing to do with what's going on. And that is certainly the situation in Maryland. Now, we've already seen this battle kind of fought out in California. And, maybe we kind of dismissed it because it's California and they believe in state-inflicted suicide anyway. I mean, they're driving people out of their state like crazy, not growing the way they had been the first time in how many decades they didn't increase congressional districts there because people are leaving the state at a rapid rate. I mean, we've kidded before literally how that if you are hiring a U-Haul to come from San Francisco to Texas, they'll give it to you for like $3,500. But if you're going from Texas back to San Francisco, you can rent the U-Haul for like $600 because they're begging to get U-Hauls back. Everybody's leaving the state, not going back. So, we kind of dismiss California because that's the one to make fun of. But it's not just there. It's any liberal, blue, hardcore, secularist state. They're all moving the same direction. And now we've got Maryland on board, but the good news is in Maryland, you still got some really good people in the legislature fighting back. And we've got one of the delegates from Maryland, one of the elected delegates in the legislature there in Maryland, who's leading the charge, pushing back on this. And we'll let her tell us what it's like to live in the Twilight Zone.
Well, and before we go to her interview, David, it does seem like the Twilight Zone to me because the stuff that's happening, they're doing it with a straight face, like they're not. It's not weird. But how can this not be weird? Some of the things they're doing. I mean, even just a few years ago, we would have thought there's no way you'd do that in a sane society. But yet it's almost like, I mean, we really are in the Twilight Zone. The good news is there's still some sane people amidst all of that insanity.
Yeah, that's right.
And trying to get it turned around. But I'm in shock every time I hear one of these stories. The delegate you're talking about is Kathy Szeliga. She's from Maryland, and she's trying to get some sanity back after a crazy bill that got passed there. And we're going to have some action items for you at the end of the program on how you can help to get us out of the Twilight Zone and get us back into some sanity. Stay with us right here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. The key to a self-governing nation is self-governing people, and the key to personal self-government is to live by the standards in God's Word. If someone cannot control himself by those standards, then our Constitution certainly will be unable to restrain him. Understanding this, John Adams declared, "We have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions unbridled by morality and religion." Greed, ambition, revenge, or seduction would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. John Adams believed that successful government rested not upon our great Constitution, but rather upon moral and religious people.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us. Our guest today is Delegate Kathy Szeliga from Maryland, and they are fighting there in Maryland the same thing California's been fighting, Delaware, and other places. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here.
I got to ask you now, before we even talk about your specific drive to overturn what has happened, to give us an idea of what has happened, because some people in the country do not realize how far this agenda has gone, and that we actually have laws on the books allowing students to decide whether they're a boy or a girl that day and go into whichever bathroom they want.
Well, yes, what's happened here in Maryland, and as you know, Maryland is a very, very deep blue state, and they passed gay marriage. We put it on the ballot. Unfortunately, we lost our fight to overturn that narrowly. But what's happened this past year, and the bill was signed today by the governor, says that if a person has a, quote, sincerely held belief that they are of whatever gender they pick that day, they can use the bathroom that that happens to be. So let me just put it in regular English for everyone. If a man decides that he has a, quote, sincerely held belief that day that he is a woman, he is free to use the women's bathroom.
How do, even just as you just described it in plain English, layman's terms, how did the women in the legislature ever go for this?
It was very puzzling because the truth was laid bare on the floor of the House of Delegates while we debated that bill. And Delegate Kathy Szeliga from Frederick asked the floor leader specifically this: if a friend of mine is a woman, she takes her church youth group girls to a public pool every summer, and they, of course, change in the girls' changing room. After this bill passes, could a man who has a, quote, sincerely held belief that he is a woman with fully grown male parts be in the woman's changing room? And the floor leader said, yes, that is what the law will do. And despite those facts, the bill still passed. And it did not pass narrowly. I think they had about 10 extra votes. We have 141 delegates. So 71 needed for a simple majority, and they got more than 71, despite knowing those facts.
Do you ever feel like that there's just a fog on the brains of a lot of folks right now? I mean, that things this crazy are done with a straight face as if it's just no big deal. And then the rest of us are thinking, beam me up, Scotty. What planet have I landed on? I mean, do you ever feel like that?
Oh, my gosh. All the time I feel like, what has happened? I think it is a head-in-the-sand approach. So they believe that protecting people who have sincerely held beliefs that they're of a different gender than they're actually biologically born should be more important than protecting the rights of women and little girls. But I think they're really naive in thinking that sexual predators would not use that law dishonestly.
Now, and does this apply to so this is schools as well, or just public? I mean, where does this actually apply?
So the law in Maryland was silent on schools, and I actually had an amendment on the floor of the House that would have removed the part of the bill that is public facilities where a woman would not expect to see a man. And, you know, in a bathroom, changing room, locker room, anywhere where a woman would not expect to see a man, to exclude that and just put the discrimination law on employment and housing and credit. And that would have been a much more reasonable approach. And some of our local jurisdictions actually have that. But the state, it's the first time ever that anyone has made the standard of proof a, quote, sincerely held belief.
Wow. So now that it's passed and the governor's signing, what happens now? You guys are working to overturn it.
Yes. So in Maryland, the only way that we can put something on the ballot is twofold. One, the legislature can write a law that sets it on the ballot, or secondly, we can petition a bill that is passed. So we don't have citizen petition initiatives. That's not part of Maryland's Constitution. So this bill passed, and the governor signed it. And this is Governor Martin O'Malley, who hopes to be president. He's looking at running in the next election, and he has signed this. So we are petitioning it to the ballot, and we're asking anyone in Maryland, please go to mdpetitions.com and download the petition, sign it, and mail it in. And for your listeners who don't live in Maryland, we certainly could use some financial support. It's been difficult gathering enough signatures to get it on the ballot. The window is closing. If we don't meet our goal by the end of May, we lose our chance to do that forever, because the bill passes, and then there is a brief window to take action.
mdpetitions.com. And so if you're in the state, you need to sign the petition. If you're out of state, you can help to gather more petitions by contributing, because that gives you guys the ability to reach more people.
Yes, because it costs us about 75 cents a signature. If we have to mail the petition, the postage, the paper, the gathering, all of that, we have a network of great volunteers helping on this, but it is always an expensive proposition.
Delegate Kathy Szeliga is our guest. Stay with us. We're going to be right back here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Around 1790, the infamous Thomas Paine wrote his Age of Reason, attacking religion and Christianity. Interestingly, one of the strongest defenders against Paine's attack was Benjamin Franklin. In fact, he stiffly rebuked Paine and told him, "He that spits in the wind spits in his own face." Do you imagine any good would be done by this attack against religion? Think how great a portion of mankind consists of youth who have need of the motives of religion to restrain them from vice, to support their virtue. I would advise you not to attempt unchaining the tiger, but to burn this piece before it is seen by any other person. If men are so wicked with religion, what would they be if without it? Benjamin Franklin believed that the practice of religion was one of the greatest assets of American society.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Kathy Szeliga, our guest. She's a member of the House of Delegates in Maryland. One of the sane voices on the East Coast in this I don't know, it's kind of like a fad now to go as far out there as you can on the sexual choices of folks. Now the transgender bill really taken off in several states, allowing folks to just decide that day that they feel like they're a man or a woman instead and go into the opposite gender's bathroom. Of course, Kathy, my biggest concern when California did this was with the schools and, high schoolers and how easy it was to make that decision on almost a daily basis. For you guys to get this overturned and wake people up to this, how do you get the word out? I mean, do most people in Maryland know this is happening, or do you think this is just in the bubble of politics?
Unfortunately, the media in Maryland has not done a very good job of covering the issue, and it is a campaign year for us. I'm knocking on doors and meeting with voters every day, and only the super informed know this is going on. And when I tell people, did you know that there's a law that passed that allows men to use the women's bathroom? It's just frankly unbelievable. People can't believe that the Maryland legislature has gone that far.
How, you mentioned the governor signing this and wanting to run for president. How did we get to the point where, even 4 years ago, a bill like this would have been the kiss of death for a presidential candidate, and yet he's embracing it? What does that tell us about the wins right now and what people think is popular? I
am concerned about it, and I'll let your listeners know that in speaking with some of my friends in the legislature that supported this issue, they felt as though in Maryland there has been action taken on behalf of the lesbian, gays, and the bisexuals. And as you know, the community is called LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered. But they felt like they hadn't delivered anything for the T in the transgendered, and this is what they were delivering for them. So for them, it was a campaign promise they were keeping, and, clearly people on the other side of the aisle, they didn't feel as though would be upset and vote him out of office.
Unbelievable. Okay, Kathy, I got to ask you, just personally for you, I cannot imagine standing on an issue like this in the environment you're in, how much opposition you receive and how difficult it becomes. How can our listeners pray for members of the legislature like yourself in your state and other states that are battling this? I know it's difficult, and so we want to come alongside you and lift you up. How can we pray for you and support what you're doing?
That is essential. I am just beyond grateful for the prayers of people, for those of us that are standing up for things that we know are right and true, and just the wisdom to communicate it effectively. Look, I'm not in favor of discriminating against transgenders. This bill was just so poorly written that it literally opens the bathroom door for sexual predators to go in there. And there's no excuse for that. There is no excuse. That the legislature could have and should have done better if they wanted to protect transgenders. And the numbers are, I hear there's 3,000, and the highest I've heard is 30,000 in the state of Maryland. Our population is 5.9 million. So for this tiny minority of people, they're putting at risk women and little girls to sexual predators who could use this law dishonestly.
Well, we thank the good Lord for you. We pray for a victory here. This is one of those situations where if people don't wake up to this, if this doesn't shake them from their slumber to realize you have to take action. These are the kind of things that we could win. We could win victories here if we would just get involved and let our voice be heard. And you're giving people a way to do that. mdpetitions.com. The time frame, as you mentioned, is very short. Folks need to go right now today to find out more at that website, mdpetitions.com. You don't have to live in Maryland to make a difference, and believe me, when something like this happens in one state, it impacts other states. These things just tend to spread. So you can help if you don't live in Maryland by contributing there on the website in order to give them the funds they need to be able to get the word out and get those signatures. Kathy, we wish you the best and sure hope to be having you on in a few weeks to talk about a victory. Now, before I let you go, walk me through the process. You do the petition, and if you get enough signatures, what happens next?
We need to have 20,000 signatures to the Board of Elections by May 31st. If we cross that threshold, then we have another goal by the end of June. So we need 75,000 total to the Board of Elections by the end of June. Then it will be on the ballot in November, and then we'll have to have the ability to educate the public on what this means. And there was a recent Rasmussen poll that showed once people understood that the bathroom was open to men, women's bathrooms will be open to men, 56% of the population thought it was a bad idea. And so we need to make sure the public understands what this bill really means.
So if you've got more than so the numbers are there. If we get the word out, if we get people to take action, pastors that are listening, we've got a lot of listeners in Maryland. We encourage you to let your pastor know about this, help them to spread the word. The only way this is going to get overturned is if folks are willing to get involved. It doesn't take long. How long does it take to sign the petition online, Kathy? Maybe, what, a minute?
Yeah, a minute or two, and there's a phone number on there. Neil Parrott, Delegate Neil Parrott, is running that effort. If you had any trouble whatsoever, give us a call. We'll walk you through it, or we'll snail mail you a petition to sign.
Let's try to bring some sanity back to Maryland. Kathy, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be on.
That's Delegate Kathy Szeliga from Maryland. Folks, we need to help make this thing happen. Stay with us. Back in a moment with David Barton.
Hey guys, this is Tim Barton with WallBuilders, and I know you hear my dad and Rick talk a lot about our founding fathers, about the original intent of our nation, the constitutional heritage that we have, and really we've seen how far we've slipped away from that. And I know a lot of us, as we hear my dad and Rick talk, think, I wish there was a place that I could go and I could see these documents, that I could read and learn about the founding fathers firsthand, see the things they did. And I want to give you some websites today that can help you accomplish that very thing. If you get online, you can go to places like Library of Congress, and you can look under their Century of Lawmaking or historical documents. You can go to the Avalon Project, to the Founders Constitution, to Google Books, or even the Internet Archives, or you can just go to WallBuilders' website. We have a section for our library, and under that section we have different subgroups for historical documents, historical writings, even a place where you can get helpful links to find out more information about other websites where you can do research for yourself and find the truth for yourself. Friends, this is a time that we need to know who we are and where we came from. WallBuilders.com is a great place to go.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live, and welcome back to sanity, hopefully, and out of the...
Well, now, wait a minute. There's still some insanity to address in what Kathy was talking about.
Yes.
You know, she asked, all right, what's the reason for this? And their explanation was, well, if you have a sincerely held belief, then that's reality. Now, wait a minute. Think about that. If you have a sincerely held belief, then that becomes real. That's your standard. It's a sincerely held belief. That reminded me of a line out of Alice in Wonderland. Listen to this line out of Alice in Wonderland.
Who's to say what is proper? What if it was agreed that proper was wearing a codfish on your head? Would you wear it?
There you go. Who's to say what's proper? If they all say that wearing a codfish on your head is proper, would you do it? And so, you know, I don't know. This thing about, and I was just thinking about how I can kind of illustrate the absurdity of that logic, that if you have a sincerely held belief, then it's reality. Okay, so let's try this. You know me, you've seen me. Probably a lot of people have seen me. They haven't. Those who haven't can hear from my voice probably what you would picture me to be. White guy, I keep claiming to be a cowboy. We've talked about my age. What if I have a sincerely held belief that I'm a Pacific Islander? Does that, can I change that on my census? Because that's one of the census things I can check. You know, if I have and everybody looks at me and they said, wait a minute, you're not a Pacific Islander. You're a Texan. I mean, you got white hair. You're a cowboy. You're as white as anybody I've ever seen. You're not a Pacific. What if I say, you know, I have a sincerely held belief that I'm only 19 and I want to be back in college playing basketball again. And anybody who looks at me says, there's no way you're 19 and there's no way you're going to get on this court with those guys. You may have played with them once, but you're not doing it now. But what if I have a sincerely held belief that I actually live in Alaska rather than Texas? And I want to go snow skiing outside my door every day. Who cares what my sincerely held belief is? There is a reality at some point. And by the way, what if I had a sincerely held belief about my profession, that I'm a pro football player? I'd be the first guy in the hospital when I lined up across from those guys and they killed me. It's just.
Let me reverse that one for you. Zig Ziglar used to say, you know, no matter how much Nate Newton believes that he's a ballerina, it's never going to happen. For those that don't remember Nate Newton, he was a big old lineman for the Cowboys. I mean, you're exactly right, David. I mean, the sincerely held belief. But you know what? This is the Twilight Zone, because I forget the guy's name that decided he was a girl and got to play basketball on some college girls basketball team, and he was a guy.
Yeah, but see, that's what happens when people with common sense sit to the side and say, tisk, tisk, tisk. This is really bad. We wish, and I'll tell you what this is, Rick. What's happening here is part of deconstructionism. This is what I've been teaching in schools for about 30 years. Deconstructionism is a steady flow of negatives about Western institutions, beliefs, and values in order to tear down the old certainties on which Western culture is founded. Now, one of those old certainties is traditional mores in respect to gender. And no, we've been taught in school that you make your own standards. You don't respect Western culture, Western civilization. And so you got a bunch of legislators now in Maryland who say, we don't care what it's been for 3,500 years of written history and 5,500 years of human existence. We think you should wear a codfish on your head. So we want you all to start wearing codfish. And I'll tell you what Kathy said was really disturbing too. When she asked her Democrat friends about this, they said, well, we owe it to our constituents. Now, wait a minute. You owe it to your constituents to help tear down the culture and the moral fiber? You think that's what you owe your constituents? You know, why were you elected? Well, we have to do whatever our constituents. No. There is something about preserving the country in which you live. And so this is one of the times where we really do need to weigh in and help Kathy and get this stuff reversed in that state, just for the sake of everybody who lives there that does have common sense, and for the sake of all those kids who are there who are going to be stuck with this really wacky stuff.
Yeah, it's got to be a wake-up call. I mean, if this doesn't get people to pay attention and say, let's just have some common sense, it's not anything and everything that anybody wants. There have to be some societal norms, and we have to stand up for protecting, in this case, the women and the ladies that I mean, just like she was saying, these guys could freely walk into a ladies' restroom. It's just insanity.
Well, the sexual predators, she already mentioned how many.
Yeah.
I mean, you've now given a license to them. And this is something that we've got to step up and help her with.
Absolutely. Check out the website, folks, mdpetitions.com. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.